So resistance develops heat, and then the heat causes energy conversion, and then that energy conversion will either work to your benefit or work against you. So either work for you or against you. And I had studied a lot of physics and molecular biology and social constructs and allegory and religion and politics and science. The last 8 years, I've had to study everything from the subatomic level all the way to the universe, which is basically subatomic level, and everything in between. And it is a constant loop on some level. It is like a zero. I mean, are there boundaries? Well, whatever boundaries you set, that's what the zero is. There's boundaries, but you don't know. See, the zero can expand or contract. That zero encapsulates everything. Zero is not really zero. It's everything and nothing. That is freaking awesome. I'm going to write that down. Zero is everything and nothing, and it holds everything and nothing, and it can expand or contract. Zero is something. And that's some crazy shit, man. And so zero is the invisible energy that people don't see. That's the invisible hand. And that's some crazy stuff. Because people think zero is nothing, but there's no such thing as nothing. There's always something. But it's how you characterize it. And then the resistance is what develops the energy. And then when it gets too hot, then you have to leave the kitchen. When it gets too hot, you have to walk away from the fire. When it gets too hot, you quit when you're ahead. Some people are too far gone. They're going to die for their beliefs. And I understand that. You would think if you got shot at once, let's say like a Trump, I would have left politics. But then what would he do? I don't imagine Trump will ever do what I'm doing and deal with pain and suffering. No, he's kind of stuck. He has to do it. He's probably forced to do what he's doing when you think about it. And even Biden. You think some octogenarian really should be out there falling all over the place and making a fool of himself because he can't keep on a certain thought track? He should be at home hanging out with his grandkids and his children. And I know people have their opinions about him, and I get it. But I mean, I wouldn't want any octogenarians being out there being cannibalized by the public and being ridiculed and being, abused. But that's the role that they chose to play. That's the role that they went into. They were given so much. That's the whole thing about transactional basis. Transactional living is, if you're born with money, the system will cultivate that, and then eventually you'll pay for being given all that. You'll pay everything back through your contribution, but then you might pay twice. Unless you figure out how to go down from so much down to almost nothing. And if you're so used to money, you're not going to take a hit on your bank account. When you have $6 million in your bank account, you won't go down to, $10,000. That's what essentially those that are born with money is, that they want to keep that money train going at all costs. And sometimes it's with their life. And so some people are born with money and they have to pay back through their life of contribution and innovation. Other people are not born with money. They were brought into this world on credit, and then they'll be forced, which we're seeing potentially with Project 2025, that those who are not enrolled in private school, who are enrolled in public school, which means you don't really have any money, you're living off the public dole when you think about it, then you'll be put through certain channels to test your mettle. Sometimes those channels are more aggressive than not. Luckily, when I went into the military, we were in peacetime. And then I think I re-enlisted around 1999. And then I got out before 2001. I got out before 2001 because, yeah, when I finally got out of the military, and then we had 2001, and then George Bush Jr. froze everyone in the military. You couldn't get out. You had to stay in. You had to go and fight. Oh my gosh. I got out just in fucking time. But now, between now and who knows when, those who are like 18, 19, 15, 14, those kids now, girls and boys, potentially, if they're not in private school and they're in public school, yeah, they'll be like in Israel. You give your 2 years, 4 years, whatever, to your government in the military, and you'll have to learn something. And then you take the ASVAB to see. I took the ASVAB twice, actually. I took it once the first time, and I got into a certain career field that, okay. And I took it a second time to see if I have improved to get into another career field, and I did. And so my first time I took the ASVAB, I got into like cooking and mortuary services, and that was on top of all the crazy background that I had. And I did the GED, and I passed that. And then I wasn't really happy with that career field. And so I left the military and then came back again, but this was still in the Air National Guard. And I retook the ASVAB, but I had maybe a couple of years of college under my belt. Maybe I took some remedial classes in like math or something else. And so I retook the ASVAB and got a higher score, and then was able to qualify for human resources, personnel, where I learned the computer, developing orders for those in the maintenance squadron. And so I'd be in the office, then typing out orders or typing out PowerPoint presentations for, the officers when they were giving their briefings and all that. So I learned, when you think about it, back like 20 something years ago, I learned Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all these different applications that now is nothing to me. Now it's so easy. I can maneuver through so many things, but it was the military that taught me a lot of stuff. And luckily it wasn't during any kind of crazy wartime maneuvers. But now with these kids today who are like between 18 and 26, and once the elections go in, and then maybe potentially, yes, Project 2025 does come into fruition, I already see that these kids will be forced into the military. They'll have to, well, the men will be, but they're saying, yeah, both. Yeah. I don't know how that's going to work. Yeah, no, yeah. You'll have to, male and female. Will both male and female be forced into selective service? Potentially. Yeah. And so I would not put it past the system to fulfill what they're talking about as far as people earning their way. If you come into this world, if your parents want to have 1 billion kids and there is no purpose for them, the system will give them a purpose. The days of just having children where they're just running the streets and robbing banks and doing stupid shit are going to be over. These kids are going to be channeled. We're going to be guided through very narrow channels that some will not survive. Others will. And I know someone said it was scary on my Facebook. I'm like, yeah, it is. Well, you chose to have a kid. You don't know if this kid's going to really contribute anything to society. So those that have money could afford to put their kid through certain channels and get them to be relatively, contributing members of society. Okay. And if they get out of line, then the parents can be leveraged financially to get their kid back in line. But those who are poor and you don't really know what their purpose is going to be because they have genetic defects, they have other, types of situations in their background that they may or may not be able to contribute and fulfill and pay back whatever the system gave them at the time, then they'll be given a job and potentially even die for their country, die for their family, die for their friends in a controlled, organized environment like the Vietnam War. What we're seeing today, like I'm saying, everything that we're seeing today is so reminiscent of the Vietnam War. And I heard somebody say, I heard some pundit, I won't say her name because I don't need any backlash, but she was also repeating what I was saying, and I don't know, the chicken or the egg, who came first. But she's like, yeah, the Satanists came out in the 1960s. And that's when everything turned around, was the 1960s, before it was non-Satanist. I don't know about that. Back in the 1930s and all the reefer madness, okay? Bringing in drugs. Even before the 1930s, 1920s, you had the flappers and you had all this other stuff. The 1800s, you had like the bubonic plague and all that. I mean, 1700, 1600, whatever, or that, yeah. So I don't think the 1960s was the turning point of the Satanists taking over. I think that was already somewhere in the mix, and it's just they channeled the Satanists to do whatever they do. So, but at this point, it doesn't even matter what came first, the chicken or the egg. It's understanding now what is going on, which is cultivating a lot of resistance, developing destruction. And if you don't understand how to manage resistance to work for you versus against you, then people will just walk into danger. They'll do things unbeknownst that the outcome is going to be deadly sooner than later. And that's kind of how the system is giving people the opportunity to save themselves or cultivate ignorance and be the human sacrifice, and also pay you very well for it. Before human sacrifices, they were forced into it, and maybe they will be again today, especially when there's wars brewing overseas. And then we bring up the draft or whatever else, and then these kids are pushed off into war, like in Vietnam, flown to countries, but you're getting the choice now, and sometimes, right now, it might be too late for some people, but if you are a new family, if you're like 26, 27, and you don't have any kids, well, don't have kids, because they will be pushed off into war. They'll be pushed into the military first, assuming they survive even their own genetics. And they'll have to fight for their country, especially if you don't have any money. And push into wars and then be a human sacrifice. They may not survive. So wouldn't it be prudent for the parents, people who are above 25 right now, figure out how to keep themselves alive without producing something that will have to pay back what they took as soon as they were born? I mean, the parents have produced something that caused a debt into their family, a debt into that child's world. Yeah, well, the system is going to want a return on that investment. They're going to want an immediate return. And that's everything is financial. Biology, immunology is financial. Every one of us was brought in on credit. Some of us could afford to pay it back. Others paid it back through so many different ways. Some of you were just human experiments. So they watched how you did shit, and they studied you, and they figured out, oh, okay. Some of you are background actors, right? That you're there to keep the infrastructure in place. You're there to keep the storyline going, but you're not that remarkable. But hey, you'll still take part in whatever mainstream situations, and you'll do whatever your parents did, traditional, and then your life might be cut short because traditionalists don't change, and then they do the same thing over again in a different environment. Their eventual intentions will be realized sooner than later. And so that's how they've contributed, is the system will get resources out of them even in just 20 years or 30 years of their life or 40 years. I mean, 40 is not even that old. Some people right now, you're watching, these kids and adults are expiring so quickly. And so you can only imagine that if being on this earth for 50 years is not that much, even to me, and I'm 50, and I feel like my life has gone by that quickly. Someone who's 30 and 40, who expire from all the whatever it is that they have within and their lifestyle. Oh my gosh. So yeah. So some people will just be background actors, supporting actors to support the current storyline until they can't anymore. And so that's when people say, oh, the world's a stage. Well, then pretend you're fucking human. Okay? No matter how fake you think things are, when I watched the opera a long time ago, when I was like 3rd grade, went to Madame Butterfly, and it was so sad. Even at 3rd grade, I actually cried at the fucking opera. I just cried because not only was I in touch with my humanity, but I really felt for that actor. Even though that actor was acting, I actually felt for that actor. I felt the pain, I felt the suffering, I felt everything. And I've always had my humanity. I mean, I kept trying to walk away from it, pretend it didn't exist because it's so painful. But, and that's why I couldn't get with being a drug addict or an alcoholic. Yeah, I smoked cigarettes, but I couldn't get with the whole self-harm. I may have acted out certain things because of hormones until that even became destructive. But still, man, you know, when there's a little bit of humanity left within you, that's just enough to foster when all the conditions are right. And so if you think all the world's a stage and you're a conspiracy theorist, okay, I get it. Then act fucking human. Cry for Trump. Cry for Biden in the position that he's in. I see so many people who are left-wing so nasty about what happened to Trump. And I see people on the right wing so nasty about Biden when he's falling on the stairs and doing, I'm like, how do you even make fun of him? He's forced into this situation. Believe me, would you want your grandpa, who's an octogenarian, who's also potentially showing signs of dementia, to be put out there for everyone to cannibalize and feed off of? No, you'd want to protect them. But this is not what's going on with Trump and Biden. And right or wrong, your reaction to those two gentlemen who are 78 and 80, these are your grandparents. How you react to them shows your lack of humanity, or your humanity when you really take a second look and be like, why are people making fun of them? Why are they glad that something happened to them? You know, I had my own resistance against some of these politicians because I knew what we were in for, and I knew some of the platforms they stood on that went against what I believed in. Fostered discrimination, fostered intolerance, and that was what I was resisting. Not so much them per se, because I don't know them personally. But when they're forced to take a side, they're going to foster ideologies that I may not agree with. And so that's why you see me switch back and forth, you know, understanding both sides and the people who are associated with both sides, the lay population. And so when you resist someone on the other side of the aisle, yeah, it's like we're all mirrors. That's why there's so many doppelgangers and clones out there. We're all mirrors to each other. Everything that we resist in somebody else is what we actually do and hold within. And it's tough to see yourself. Believe me, I've seen myself all over Facebook, and I finally figured out, oh shit. Every single time I get so indignant and so self-righteous about something, and I post it, and I'm like, oh fuck, I'm doing that myself. I better fucking knock it off. And so every single time I get indignant, it's another self-awareness, because then I'm looking at myself and I do exactly what they're doing. And I'm pissy about it. And I'm like, oh, this is the time for me to start self-reflecting. And so if they're doing things that are so resistant and so intolerant, then I'm sure I'm doing that too on some level. And then I finally realized, okay, I can't stop people from ending their own life voluntarily because the pain and suffering is too much. I can't stop people and be so indignant that they're getting all their operations and whatever else because they were told that these operations are going to save them. And even though I may think differently, it's not my place to be like so resistant to somebody else's choices for their own life. So then I'm like, you know what? I'll put out information, but I'm not saying you should do what I'm doing. I can't even condemn anyone for making the choices best for them. So I just say what I say, and I say how I'm surviving, what I'm surviving, and my ideas about stuff. And that's pretty much it. Okay? Oh, gosh. So it's, when you're clean and sober and you felt the pain and suffering like I have, like yesterday, oh my gosh, I don't know. But my arm was hurting yesterday. Oh, it was hurting. And it's so crazy because I didn't used to have this so much with this arm pain, but it is a type of strengthening. And my shoulder's not as bad as it was before, but I still feel it. But it also makes me aware of the body pushing things through. So whenever I do feel arm pain, and back pain is because my intestines are pushing things through. Everything in my body is activated and pushing things through narrow channels. And so either I get into hot water or run hot water over myself to help open up, expand the capillaries and blood vessels. But then I know the body is pushing, I know the body is activated, trying to get things going. So it's all just a great indicator of survival. Okay. And sometimes even turning the AC down, not so cold, will help. Because when it was cold in the house and I'm feeling arm pain and I go outside and it's warmer, I feel better. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it's too cold in the house because it's constricting the blood vessels and it's also pushing shit through. And so, you know, but that's just going to happen different times. You're never going to know. So I'm aware whenever the pain comes, I understand what it is. I know how to react to it. I feed, I eat, release, maybe change the temperature in the house or take a hot shower or run hot water over my hands, my arms if need be. I mean, or like, you know, or just activate, like do energy stuff. What do you mean by energy stuff? Like washing dishes, doing laundry, something. And so it's such a constant awareness of how to respond to the energy in the body and not be in resistance to it. And that's, jeez. And so then you're like, oh my gosh, when you're aware of how to resist, how to respond to your own energy, then you're aware of the world around you. And it's pretty crazy. So, X-Men and women. So I figured out finally that radiation is not something. When you Google, does radiation make you stronger? Remember, it's based upon a society that can't handle pain and suffering, that have food allergies, that they take the radiation for disease and stuff. And so people deteriorate through all the treatments and the disease. And when you're already deficient behind the 8 ball several times over, and then you also have a cancer and disease and you're getting radiation, no, you're not going to become stronger. But given what I've been doing the last 8 years, and I'm around Wi-Fi, cell towers, climate change, then the radiation in the atmosphere is actually making me stronger and smarter, while others are deteriorating excessively and aggressively from whatever radiation is in their atmosphere, which is why you're seeing them turn off their Wi-Fi and try to move away from cell towers and get pissy about the chemtrails or whatever, because they're actively deteriorating and also in resistance, and they can't handle air, food, and water. And it shows, right? And so X-Men and women, Marvel, right? Generation X, you are the crapshoot. We, as in Generation X, and you can have an older Gen X, 1965, and a younger generation, 1979, 1980, something like that. And so we are hovering around the Hayflick limit. Boomers were programmed to be resistant hippies or God-fearing Judeo-Christian revivalists. So who's a boomer? Trump and Biden are both boomers. All right. Maybe late boomers? Late boomers. But, yeah. Or they could be silent gen boomer. I haven't figured out they're close to the cutoff of older boomer and silent gen. So boomers were programmed to be resistant hippies. Okay, so I've known some boomers and they were hippies, and then they turned into these corporate executives. They were hippies when they're in their 20s and teens, and then they went to college because their dad or mom said, go to college. They go into these college industry and get their degree, and now they're in corporate America promoting the agenda. But they were resistant hippies in their college years, and they became a respectable human being in corporate America in their upper middle class neighborhood with 2.5 kids and a picket fence. Or they turn into God-fearing Judeo-Christian revivalists, which is the same thing again. So you have the West Coast, East Coast with boomers who are resistant hippies, now turned into respectable upper middle class WASPs, or God-fearing Judeo-Christian revivalists in the middle of America. And they're in their blue-collar industry doing their blue-collar stuff, and they have still 2.5 kids. Maybe they don't have as much square footage, but they still have the same ideology, you know. They're respectable in their profession, and they do whatever that culture does. And so you see how both the West Coast and the East Coast and Middle America practice the same thing, but it's the type of jobs that they do is what then differentiates them. And then it also causes resistance, because then they're like, oh, well, I'm blue collar and I'm middle America, and we're strong, and we build the infrastructure, while those on the West Coast are eggheads and may develop the programming for the infrastructure, and we're carrying it out, but we'll survive more than they will. Well, I don't know. You guys both need each other to figure out how to survive. All right. If it wasn't for the eggheads, then you wouldn't have anything to go and do. And it wasn't for the people in Middle America who would build your fucking world, right? So anyway, some of you are given a chance to survive your peers. Others of you might have a chance if you can survive yourself. Many of you have taken on some activist stance, and you're like a pit bull and you can't fucking let go. And so I made an absolute statement. Radiation does make strong people stronger. Now, strong is all relative to what you mean by, like, are you emotionally strong, intellectually strong, adaptable strong? Well, radiation does make strong people stronger. But if you don't understand that there is a balance on how to manage entropy and negentropy, then the strong will eventually become weak. But you might get strong in the meantime, right? That's when people who build muscles, when they're doing the weightlifting resistance training, yeah, they become strong up to a point, and then they start deflating. We saw that in Jack LaLanne and Schwarzenegger, okay? And it also caused a lot of more resistance and friction when piezoelectric forces are activated to produce energy. And piezoelectricity is like a squeezing, and that squeezing develops energy. All right, and so it causes changes to the DNA to allow whatever genetic scripts floating in the environment to take hold. And if the person supports the changes effectively, not only will the person become stronger, but the person will also be more engaged with their environment. So when you're feeling the pain and suffering and you're more engaged, and then those neural impulses, developing new neural pathways start firing on all cylinders. That's when people make connections. That's when they realize the error of their ways. That's when they can develop new innovation for not only themselves, but for the world around them if they are in the right conditions. And so you've heard that whatever you focus on, whatever you resist will persist. Well, if you choose to focus on surviving and understanding the world you live in, your life and your understanding and awareness of your environment will persist and also become stronger and more advanced. It's not just the external environment out there you must adapt to. You must also adapt to the social constructs and the society you live in, whether it's the government as well as the people you choose to insert yourself into in body, mind, and spirit and community. And so once you become more aware of how you are in society, then you'll be very aware of how others perceive. And that's when you stay home and you stay safe, and you put signs on your window that says, I don't answer the door. Call 911 if you have an emergency. And then the only time I don't answer the door is for USPS, UPS, and FedEx and delivery services. But I will not answer my door to anyone else. If you have my number or you're on my Facebook, then it means I'm okay with having some kind of connection with you. But if I don't know who the fuck you are, I ain't answering the goddamn door. And so when you're aware of how shit works in your body, mind, and spirit, and then you become aware of the danger around you, and you look at people and you can read their spirit, you can read their mannerisms, then you don't want to engage with people you don't fucking know. You'll walk away and you'll protect yourself. And you'll always be aware that there is danger out there and someone who will inevitably cross their boundaries if given the opportunity. And that's why I don't answer my door. I don't answer my phone. I don't like dealing with private messages. I don't know who the hell you are, unless I kind of been around you through the J world. And we've done FaceTime. But yeah, I don't cultivate resistance or strangers or try to save people or condemn anyone specifically. And so when you cultivate resistance by hanging out with a lot of people, animals, and by participating in group resistance, you develop a lot of heat. And that heat breaks things down. Then you must eat for the heat you are developing and the resistance you are sustaining until you finally leave and stay mostly on your own, so you can give your body, mind, and spirit a rest. And that's why it is hotter in the cities, because not only of all the solar panels and the pavement and the buildings, but also the people who are actively influenced by the ULF, by the energy, by climate change. And so when it's really hot outside, you stay cool and you eat for the heat, because you know during that heat there is immune system activation. There's active resistance going on. That's why you feel the pain, because your body's trying to push things out. Your body's also resisting at the same time. And then you have to help your body. You could say it's therapy, but you can take a hot shower, take a therapeutic hot shower to then open up your blood vessels. But you better have enough infrastructure to handle that therapeutic type of thing. But if not, then you're going to break down your body even more, especially if you're gelatinous. When you're gelatinous, you don't have much structure and form to you. Hot water and cold water will destroy you. Then you got to have lukewarm water so the body isn't reacting too much to resist the cold or the heat. You don't want to get to be gelatinous. Once you become gelatinous, it's over with. A lot of elderly are gelatinous, so it's just a matter of time before something takes them out. And that's what sucks. You can't do anything about it. All right, so people might feel more rested in the rural areas, but the effects on the heat from the resistance and climate change in the cities around you will also affect your peaceful existence. And so you still have to adapt to everything that you are part of, even if you are in the middle of nowhere needing supplies. You see those guys that live off the grid, they're skinny or they're old or decrepit. They may not even be old, they just are deteriorating. You can never escape civilization, and you can't live by yourself away from everybody, because you won't be able to survive. All right? Because if you live away from everybody and you're all by yourself, then you got to chop the wood. You got to grow your food. You got to figure out, how to release your waste somewhere and bury it or something. I don't know, process it so you're not living amongst your own shit. And you got to figure out how to develop climate control. And so those off-gridders out there aren't fucking off-gridding, because they still need community. They still need their shelter. They still need their fires and their pots and their pans and their ways of conserving food or preserving food. So it's like, yeah, off-gridders don't even understand that you can't run away from what you've already accepted, which is you need people around you, but you can't handle the resistance of people around you. So even off-gridders destroy themselves over time because they don't know how to manage the energy that they're cultivating. Energy gives life to organisms who are intelligent enough to sustain life, but also can destroy organisms who are too weak to handle the energy. If people who took on radiation for oncology understood how to feed their body and deal with the pain and suffering while also getting radiated, they could survive those methodologies, but you need meat, milk, cheese, eggs, whatever. I noticed a comment when I'm watching a Facebook reel of these young, Asian males, almost like female, but they're so skinny, but they're also dancing. They're dancing so amazing. You're like, wow. And they look kind of Korean or Japanese. And someone said that on Facebook that either they didn't reach puberty and they also need a glass of milk. They need the fat. They need the Mongolian diet, right? But hey, when you're just basically energy and skin and bones and some life force within you that you can take on, how to do dance moves and dance to music and be really in tune with that. Yeah, that's a temporary existence, and it's an amazing existence, and I think it's great. I think it's beautiful to see certain cultures perform, but they're temporary. But hey, they're there for a reason. They're given a lifestyle, and they're given a belief system. They're given a job. They're given whatever, and so this is how they're paying back. When someone brings you into this world, you're on credit, and then you got to be able to develop a purpose to pay back your consumption for being on this earth. And so, but the system has instructed them to starve or keep treating their disease, and systematically take away food that even the radiation doesn't help them. It actually destroys a person. The system has divided people into two groups. A segment of the population is receiving radiation, becoming stronger and more adaptable, and far more advanced. Another segment of the population is withering under the radiation and the heat and, of course, all the treatments, and actively inviting resistance into their world. without supporting it effectively and correctly. Needless to say, those who can handle the radiation and live mostly by themselves or around one or two people more often than not will probably become stronger and more adaptable and will survive climate change. And some people cultivate resistance within their body. They don't release the demons because they're afraid of pain and suffering. And so they have all this resistance within their body that may be dormant, right? Okay, so it's a little bit dormant. Maybe it comes up when the climate changes, like spring allergy season or cold and flu season. But then they get around their friends and family. They get around higher echelons of energy, higher forms of energy, or more frequencies. They go to Walmart or they go to a party or to a concert. And then that resistance within their body wakes up. Okay? And so that's when you see people get the hives. They get heart attacks and strokes. They get headaches. And then they're like, oh God, I don't want to feel that. So they're taking their cures, all their different pills, power supplements, and detoxes and starving themselves so they don't feel that resistance. So they starve the resistance in their body instead of release it. And essentially they're starving themselves and they waste weight and nothing. So they become elderly, become super skinny, or they foster so much diverse resistance within, they become bigger and bigger and bigger, and maybe they have the genetics to expand like a zero, expand, but have a resistance against contracting. But eventually when you expand so much and it does contract, that's called breakage. That's called supernova. That's called raptured, okay? When you cannot actively survive expansion and contraction, you have that, and that's the whole thing with what exercise is expanding and contracting your muscles to develop a type of resistance to survive your environment, survive your peers, develop a strength. But during climate change, when you have immunological resistance to also deal with, it's not just the muscle resistance through your activities like athletics and whatever else, then you got to deal with your immunological resistance of strengthening your blood vessels and your alimentary canal. And when you have so much resistance on all sides, even your political resistance, then you'll think everything is attacking. You'll think everything is poison. You'll think everyone's out to get you. And you couldn't be wrong. You're not wrong, because it's true. When you actively invite resistance and cultivate resistance and sustain resistance, then everyone is out to get you. Not intentionally. Sometimes you get friendly fire. Your animals, your children, your friends and family, everyone that you actively insert yourself into as far as their world, then you cultivate resistance, and then that resistance causes breakage, and that breakage causes then die suddenly, as well as starvation or behavioral changes that would work against you. And so as you can see, those who have to hang out in large groups with large families, who are also in great resistance to politics, religion, and science, are not surviving very well. And so you're hearing their screams of resistance and then silence, because the body can only handle so much resistance. And that's why some of the right-wing scientists say global warming does not exist when you go out in the country, because you're not getting a bunch of people together, cause a type of friction or immunological resistance, developing a lot of heat and methane from the waste material. And so the scientists, the left-wing scientists, I guess if you want to split those two worlds into two factions, want to save the planet from people developing pods and groups of people who basically consume everything out of existence, and they won't get the people out, and they want to get people out of biodiversity, so out of the middle of America, when you think about it, and push them into human habitation zones, and then let them fight it out in the cities and see who can handle all that heat of resistance. You'll see who gets out of the war, and you will also see those who voluntarily participate in the war, even if it's just traveling and hanging out with diverse groups of people. Sometimes people don't say anything when they resist. They just pretend nothing is bad exists, and they go about their day as if nothing has changed until the system changes them and they don't survive it. Actively cultivating ignorance is a type of resistance as well. That's also, being cured. When you can't handle change, then you're cured. When you don't want to change the way you do things to save yourself, that's being cured. Denial is like a cure. Denial is just pretending that the old world is still here and not realizing that the new world is here. And you do the same thing over again, but in a different environment. And then that's called entropy. And you would not know how to then manage negentropy to help counteract the entropy. And so you'll actively be in entropy until you are so chaotic that then rapture. So what happened a couple days ago on July 13th is emboldening people to develop even more resistance and supernova. And that's why one must be very careful out there. When people resist you because you're not aware of your effect on the world, you can be caught in situations you can't get out of. My husband resists me sometimes. I resist him. It's a strengthening. And then when it's too much, I'm like, okay, dude, chill the fuck out. My arm hurts or something. Okay? And so I know when I need to like hang out in my room and let him be downstairs, because either my arms are hurting or I'm feeling whatever or I'm in pain or something. And so I know with us in the same environment, his energy is activating resistance in my body. And so then I have to go and sleep it off and eat food and all that. So even knowing how a person that you live with activates resistance, then you need to have a big enough house so you can go to your separate corners. But if you're always on top of somebody, then you're always engaging in resistance. And when animals are on top of you, and when you're on top of animals, when they're all around you, yeah, you're developing a resistance. You're developing a lot of offspring microbes that will work against you. And when you're trying to release the demons and you're actually developing them too at the same time, yeah, that's a lot of energy to deal with. And your body will get exhausted from that. And then when you're always in pain because you're around such diverse microbes that are actively working against you, then that's when people turn to all the remedies, just so they don't feel the pain, because they want to feel the pleasure of the animals and the people and all the activities. And so that's how people destroy themselves, because they cultivate resistance and then they also try to cure it. And that only lasts so long. And so when you finally can look at everybody as a human and not as a reptile or an alien, maybe, just maybe, you have gotten your humanity back. It's about regaining your humanity. When you actually feel sorry for both Trump and Biden for their situation, because now they're just living out their programming. They're towards the end of their line. Anyone who becomes president has already been indoctrinated into a system, and they're just acting out their programming. They're just doing the next level of what they were programmed to do. Even Obama, he works in the background, but good for him. Whatever. So when you don't voluntarily insert yourself into situations because you're lonely, and you actively take yourself away from most social situations because you know your presence could actually cause somebody else to activate something they are not prepared for, you might actually have gotten your humanity back. So when I don't hang out with people because I know maybe my presence could cause a resistance and even an immune system activation they're not prepared for, I even knew this a couple of years ago, which is why that's why I slowly and methodically extricated myself from social situations and did not develop an expectation that I would go do things with people. When at the height of certain variants that were going around as far as COVID and the pandemic, I actively did not want to go into a situation knowing that this person had cancer disease, chronic illness, or whatever, because I didn't want to be the one to activate them or have my microbes influence them. Even though they've chosen to be around me, I said, and I was being, what would you call it? Like benevolent, but it was also selfish because I also was getting activated by other people. Other people were activating my immune system, and I'm like, dude, I can't deal with it. So me understanding that innately then had me make a choice not to hang out with people, knowing what they're dealing with. And that's gaining your humanity back when you know your effect on people, regardless of which side you stand on. You know your presence could activate someone to pass away. Well, what the fuck then? I know, what the fuck then, right? And so you don't self-harm through drugs, alcohol, and crazy sex, and you pull back on your consumption because you can afford to. Maybe you might get your humanity back. But that does take years of conditioning to feel the pain and suffering of your own cells and acknowledge the damage you've done to yourself and then also the world around you. So regaining your humanity is so fucking painful that only a few people could potentially do it and survive it, because facing everything you've ever done to yourself and the world and to your children is quite extraordinarily difficult. It's like someone who never apologizes. You're like, whoa, yeah. There was a shift somewhere in their existence. They became aware of what they have done to themselves and other people, and they're actually apologetic, just like the 12-step program with Alcoholics Anonymous. When you're so aware of your effect on people and their effect on you, then you're actually scared of your peers. It means you are in tune with your humanity. If you don't have any fear around your peers, then you'll walk into danger. That's what happens to people who are fearless if they're not aware of their effect on other people and they're not aware of how people affect them until they walk into danger and they don't survive it, or they get maimed in the process. And so when I was thinking, like, how does Trump or Biden walk into these crowds of people and say what they say? They say such inflammatory stuff. And inevitably, somebody's going to take an issue with what they're saying. I mean, shit, I got so much hate for whatever I was saying, how I was expressing myself and all that. And when you get so much online hate, then, I mean, when people are like, hey, people that are around me at the time, we should do these public things and go do like symposiums and do public speeches. And I'm like, fuck no, I'm not. That's why you don't ever see me go do like book signings. I have books here, but I don't actually sell them. I don't try to promote these books. I don't go out there and be like, hey, I'll sign the book. I'll go up. No, because my book develops a lot of resistance in people who don't understand. And to go do a book signing or go do public appearances, being a whore for fame and fortune, you put your life on the line. And so when you're aware of how your peers perceive you and how you perceive your peers, oh, you don't put yourself in diverse company. Fuck no. But you want the freedom to say stuff, but when you have the freedom to say stuff and articulate everything, then you can't have it both ways. You can't be free to say stuff and then think your peers are going to like you and accept you and not want to do harm to you. Oh, fuck no. That's not the reality. But that's the thing, when we've cultivated ignorance and cultivated lack of awareness, we've cultivated cures, we're not even aware that there are consequences to what we say. And so if you want to be free to say what you want to say, then say it through behind your computer at home. Stay home and stay safe. Don't answer your phone. Don't talk to different strangers. Don't insert yourself into diverse groups of people, because people have an intolerance to other ways of saying things and doing things. And so you give people the chance to be exposed to this and get used to this information. But even then, it's still not safe out there. Fuck, I wouldn't be a Trump or a Biden or any politician or anyone that sticks their neck out on one side of the aisle or the other, because you will always piss somebody off somewhere. And so that's why I keep saying, don't get mad at me. I was raised, in the 80s and 90s, and I came here from Vietnam, and I never asked to be here. And then I was raised by two scientists who gave me so much opportunity. And I've suffered, just like most of you have suffered. And I've learned the error of my ways, and I'm adapting, and I'm evolving, and I'm not the fucking enemy. So don't direct your hate towards me. Figure out how to self-reflect and figure out where you came up short. But I'm not the enemy here. And that's why I keep impressing upon people. I'm not the enemy here. I'm not trying to hurt you. No one is trying to hurt you, but people actively hurt themselves and then they blame somebody else. And that's what you're dealing with. And that's why you get out of society, because the more resistance people cultivate, the more they're going to blame somebody. And if you fit all the factors they think is harmful, then they're going to think you're the enemy. And no. So be aware. When you're so aware of your effect on people and their effect on you, then you're actually scared of your peers. It means you're in tune with your humanity. And so if you don't have any fears around your peers, then you'll walk into danger. And that's what happens to people who are fearless, is they're not aware of their effect on other people, and they're not aware of how people affect them until they walk into danger and they don't survive it, or they get maimed in the process. And that's what happened a couple of days ago. I didn't have too much fear around strangers for many years, so I walked into danger, got my ass whooped in body, mind, and spirit, sometimes even more so after I was on Dr. Phil, which caused me to be in great fear of my peers. And so I should have been. I cultivated a lot of resistance, so I became even more aware of how dangerous my society is when I invited resistance into my world, even if it's friendly fire. Friendly fire is when people around you try to actively change you subconsciously through their politics, religion, science, and microbes. And so when I was changing things, doing things, and my peers were next to me were like, no, don't do that, don't do that. Yeah, that's friendly fire. When you're aware of external and internal resistance because of group activity, then you foster those fights or flight, and then you foster those fight or flight hormones, then you'll realize how dangerous the world is around you. All right? Not only are you fostering those hormones of fight or flight, but you're also developing a clean and sober lifestyle so you can be even more aware of danger when it is far away. And so that's why I was raised the way I was raised, so I was in tune with danger. Even though I wasn't in a dangerous situation with my parents, they wanted to make sure that those hormones were produced. So that way when I'm out there in the public with boyfriends and friends and group activity, that I actually have the hormones of fight or flight and in tune with them. So then I know innately, subconsciously, how to get out and save myself. Sometimes I would stay in longer in situations that could have killed me, but I was very lucky. I survived my peers the last 30 years. And in this world, you want to know what danger is coming, when danger is coming, because many times you'll not get the warning, especially those in Arizona experiencing tornadoes. And they don't even have a warning system. So I saw in the group, this tornado group or extreme weather group, that some parts of northern Arizona are getting tornadoes. And they don't have a warning system. And oh my gosh. So that's also another thing to be aware of. That's how unpredictable the world is around you. And if you're not clean and sober and you are completely oblivious, you'll walk into danger and you may not survive it. So with that said, I'm becoming stronger with the Wi-Fi and with the cell towers and with the chemtrails, and people around me who don't understand are becoming weaker, and that's why they're in resistance, and some people are in denial. And so with all that said, again, understand any politician who sticks their neck out for whatever reason are cultivating resistance and are getting paid very well for it, but they're also putting their life on the line. And they chose to be your human sacrifice. Biden chose to be the human sacrifice. Trump chose to be the human sacrifice. Those in Hollywood, actors and actresses, choose to be the human sacrifice because they're going to have to play certain parts that they gravitate towards relative to the part, and they enact that part that they most identify with. And they have to be cured. And so some of these actors and actresses are so skinny, but it's a short shelf life when you're in Hollywood, when you're in politics, when you're in religion, because you have to be cured acting out the hormones that were given to you at the time and whatever it is that you voluntarily took on. But people sell their soul all the time for family and friends. So I guess it's more of the same because you think your activist group are your friends. And so you guys will sell each other out, which we did in the J world way back in the early times. We were selling each other out all over. We were calling CPS on each other, calling the FBI, the CIA, the police, the FBI. Like I said, we were calling everybody on each other. We were selling each other out all over the place, pulling the rug from underneath each other. We were cultivating groups against each other. We were lobbing grenades at each other. It was just freaking war the last 8 years. But it was a bloodless war. It was a bloodless war. It was more spiritual than anything else. Okay? And that's how the system is saving people when you think about it. You choose to go into the hospital system. You choose to get everything taken out of your body. You choose to take all your drugs and alcohol and sex. Well, that's your choice. But when you attack someone for their ideology, well, at least you're attacking their ideology and they can block and delete you. But as soon as you start cultivating physical war of harming somebody, that's when the system will come down on you. All right. So, yeah. So people sell their soul all the time for friends and family. So I guess it's more of the same because you think your activist groups are your friends, and so you guys will sell each other out until the last person is standing who is so traumatized they don't even survive being by themselves because they can't. They fed off you guys, and you guys couldn't survive them, but they survived you, but not for very long. All right? So when you have a bunch of people around you, right, like your friends and family, and in this environment, people are dropping like flies, there might be one person left standing, but they barely can survive on their own because they were using their friends and family around them to feed. And when there's no one around them to feed off of, they got to figure out another food source. And they may not even survive the other food sources they cultivate because it's the same shit. They haven't evolved to anything different. They're just looking for the same type of situation until they've consumed everyone that's given them the option to consume. And that's kind of crazy. And so understand both sides of the issue, regardless of people's background. Okay? Anyone that sticks their neck out for you, regardless of which side of the aisle they stand on, they are the human sacrifice if they cannot learn to get out of the kitchen when it becomes way too hot. I got out of the kitchen before it became too hot, and I understood both sides. And so that's what I'm saying with gambling. You learn how to quit when you're ahead. But if you're that greedy, then that money, friends, family, and power will destroy you. And then you turn into Gollum, my precious. And that was the whole thing about the Lord of the Rings. Gollum is basically people on Facebook who are cultivating friends and family and religion and politics and science and remedies, and they're selling people a lifestyle and a belief system and women and men and all this stuff. And so, they it's the devil and the angel. But the devil is the reality that you can't sustain that for too long, and the angel is the illusions. And you see so many people in the religious world cultivate the illusions, and they try to destroy the reality. Now, reality can never be destroyed. It just keeps creeping up. People keep curing and carving out the reality. And so they keep the illusions. They keep their friends or family. They keep their drugs, the alcohol, and the sex. They keep all those illusions going until the body can't handle any more of those illusions. And then reality finally kicks them in the ass, and they don't survive reality. And so that's kind of the world you live in. All right? And so someone said, don't lose friendships today over two men who don't even know your names. It's okay to have different political views and still maintain love and respect for each other. Oh my God. Wah, 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 wah. There's a little violin for all those who are in love, love, love. Reality is the devil while the angels are the illusions. It's not that friendships were lost because of the two men in office. People were just hanging by a string, and politics were the straw that broke the camel's back. Friends come and go, but your humanity should be forever. What if the lack of humanity is what kept people tight? Sometimes when you look in the mirror, the bonds of illusions break. Maybe what you see wrong in the opposite party is what you see wrong in yourself. Your friends' negative reaction to your beliefs are extremely honest reactions, and they see the truth within themselves regarding their own beliefs, and they can't face the truth. Your friends are your mirrors. When you don't have any friends, then you're forced to look at yourself every day and deal with yourself. If you have an issue with yourself, you will always find somebody else to project what illusions you want to see in yourself, and you make sure there are no cracks in the facade, or else that friend is gone. So how many people have let go of friends because they didn't fulfill that illusion that they had about themselves and the world around them? The reality of the situation was too much for their friend to handle, so they don't have that friend anymore. The friendship has changed because the illusions were broken. And that's what happens when people's lives change. People die, significant others die, people get cancer, disease, and chronic illness, and that's a crack in the facade that people can't handle. Some relationships, like marriages, can't handle the cracks in the facade. And so that's why sicknesses can really break people apart. Children's illnesses break people apart because their illusions are gone. If you lose friends, it's because you saw your reflection and you fucking hated it. You couldn't handle seeing the cracks in your own facade. And when you lose friends because of politics, religion, and science, it's because you couldn't look at yourself in the mirror. And so you find people with the same reflection until you can't handle it anymore. If you stay friends with people, then the bond of whatever you chose not to face becomes stronger, and so the illusions become stronger and stronger until one day the body, mind, and spirit cannot support the illusions people keep perpetuating and sustaining. When reality sets in, she's not very kind. She doesn't have to be. She had to pretend to be fake her whole life, and now she's fucking done. So it's true when people say the more friends and family you have around you, the faker you become. Absolutely, because you have to be living the illusion. Everyone has to be cured under medication, under the same thought process and lifestyle. Because if not, then, oh my God, you might actually, crack your illusions, and then your whole life is done, right? So that's why people get rid of people who don't live within the illusions that they live within. And that's why people die in friends and family, because the illusions killed them. In my opinion, I think reality is the devil and the angels are the illusions. And people love cultivating angels because they love living in their illusions. And the devil is the reality. That's religion. That's politics. That's even science. And so, yeah, when people say, oh, don't lose your friendship to stay over two men who don't even know your names, it's okay to have different political views and still maintain love and respect. No, it's not. Because you guys will die for that. But then, hey, here's the thing. That's the fake world. Friendships and family and living those illusions. It's the fake world. And you can only be fake for so long. And that's what people are resisting, is reality, by trying to cultivate fakery in their world. And when you cultivate fakery, then you become a mean person when someone challenges your illusions. And I've always been that person to challenge people's illusions because I felt the reality of the world. And it's not a nice fucking reality. It's fucking ugly. But if you can't see it, it's because you're so blinded by your illusions and you make sure people around you reinforce them, that someone like me would threaten your very existence. It's not that I'm doing any harm to you or to your life. I'm not dangerous to you, but I'm dangerous by threatening that your illusions will be gone and that you'd have to face the reality of what it is that you've contributed to with your kids, the harm to your kids, to yourself, to the people around you, to Mother Earth, to your politicians, to your community. And when you're not ready to pay the piper and repent, right, then you'll get rid of those who are a reflection of what you don't want to see. And you'll keep consuming those around you who keep the illusion alive. And that's the power of friendship, is the power of denial. Oh, mercy me. Mercy, mercy me, says Marvin Gaye. Things are not what they used to be. They definitely are not. And so, remember, Biden is also a human being and a father and a grandfather. And despite any accusations about his background, he still deserves respect, and he's also human. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Despite any accusations about both gentlemen, Trump and Biden, backgrounds, they both are human and they are a victim of their own society. And they have been shoved into roles that they must perform in. I started watching again Trump's background back when they developed a documentary about him when he was in office from back in 2016. And I was like, oh yeah. His dad was a little interesting. Okay, his dad shaped him. And then he was given a lot of entrance into high society and given a lot of opportunity to rebuild New York City. All right? And so they've been shoved into roles that they must perform in. And when you're in the trappings of wealth, you're trapped. You're not going to take $10 million and try to live on $10,000. No. There's no fucking way anyone who has that much money could be able to convert 10 million into 10,000 and be happy. So they do what they have to do. You know as well as I, Biden should be at home chilling out, right? On his Barker Lounge and drinking iced tea and watching reruns and maybe going outside and playing shuffleboard or something. But no, he's out there stumbling everywhere and poor guy. But he's out there for whatever reason. I cannot tell you what's behind it. Well, I can, but I'm not going to speculate that. So the system is teaching us a lesson, and I see the lessons loud and clear. Yeah. Trump was shown to be fallible. Biden is fallible. You see that. They both want you, the system both wants you to see both of them as humans, not as some deity or Satan. And so somebody said on my Facebook, F-U-C-K him. This guy, Steve Durk, he's funny. He's very honest with how he views stuff, and I'm fine with it. I mean, I don't like people saying that, like, oh, the Rothschild or this and that, because I don't like the implication of anti-Semite. And so I just stay away from those worlds. But if you have an issue with Trump or Biden, you say F-U-C-K him, okay, I can get it. I understand. I understand your views. You're not taking his religion and politics. You're not implying anything specific. You're just saying, fuck him. Okay. And I said, to this day, I said to Steve, to this day, I still have trouble liking some of the Hollywood actors who play such evil villains so realistically in the movies. Okay, why do you think they play such evil villains? Because they identify so much with the character. All right, and he said whatever he said. But that's the thing, is that's why people are in positions, because they identify with the characters, and they play their part. And sometimes you see them play their part so well that you can't tell the difference between reality and fiction, because they both are one and the same. In Hollywood, and all the scenarios in Hollywood translate into those in politics, religion, science, and even in your family and friends. And you know that the system is showing you what you are doing, what your peers are doing. Just because you don't actively commit crimes and you think everything is wonderful, there are people around you that are committing crimes all around you, victimizing somebody or something. And that your world is not so peaceful as you think, because eventually you're going to have to interact with someone who's committing crimes, and you could potentially be a victim. The people who live in their homogenized families, homogenized communities, homogenized lifestyles are going to get a rude awakening when finally the world outside that they've been avoiding so much comes into their world and infiltrates. And are you going to survive that infiltration? And so Project 2025 is kind of like that, because we have been protected from the draft and conscription, right? But then remember the Ukraine military, they conscripted the men and the boys. Women tried to escape Ukraine and they fought Russians, and it's like, oh my God, conscription, holy shit. And so Project 2025 is showing you that those in private school will be influential in the college and whatever they're doing for their families, and they can be leveraged through finances because their family has money. And those in public school will have to go and prove their worth if they survive the wars that they're going to be forced into overseas. And so again, do you really want to encourage your grandsons and granddaughters who are in their 19s and 20s to have children when you know that's what's in it for them? Is they're going to have to be, if they even survive the climate, but then they have to be conscripted into a war that they're probably not going to survive. And so just like Vietnam, the rich, influential kids go to college, the poor kids, the military. Just like here in Ohio. Okay, when you think about California and those in the upper middle class, they go to college. And then those here in Ohio that don't have, access to college and money, they're coming up poor. Maybe they live in the projects. Well, they're going into the military. They become patriotic. They fight for their country. They have purpose. When you don't have purpose in life, someone has to develop a purpose. And if you can't develop a purpose and your family doesn't have a purpose for you, then the government's going to give you a purpose. And sometimes it's going to die for your country, but give you a great story around it to make you okay with that. So just like Vietnam, the rich, influential kids go to college, the poor, the military. The rich kids have money behind them, so that most likely they can pay their way in. Poor kids have to prove their worth. Sometimes poor kids are used as a tool. Sometimes rich kids, like the socialites, Paris Hilton, Nikki Hilton, but they're married into wealth, but they are having kids. They're told to go and do whatever they do. They're programmed to do what they're doing right now, influence and be fashionable and look like they're happy doing what they're doing with their family and nice house and everything. And so they're forced and paid very well to develop an image for people to emulate and strive for, to give you purpose. Oh, I want to be just like Nikki Hilton, just like Paris Hilton. so cute and hot and sexual with money and children and animals and a hot husband and a hot wife. I mean, that's what these influencers are there for, to give people purpose who don't have any purpose, right? Because they don't know their purpose. They haven't have enough life experience to develop one. So then you have these examples in Hollywood, in politics, religion, and science, to then give people a purpose, right? And so sometimes both are used as background actors, as fillers, like seat fillers. In those positions of background actors, both are not necessarily remarkable, but they keep the storyline going. But even rich kids still have to prove their worth at some point, but they have parents who could potentially be financially leveraged if they get out of line. Poor kids don't have any money behind them, so they really have to prove their worth. So I came from Silicon Valley, and yes, there's money there, but I was not raised like the kids in Silicon Valley with money, and they had the cars at 16 and the sweet 16, and they didn't have all the trip. I mean, everything that I did, I either took on a student loan or I paid for myself and suffered through the bad choices of like having a car that I bought for $900. I took a $2,000 loan, an unsecured loan through one of the banks when I was in Walnut Creek. And I spent $1,000 on the car, $900 on a car, on a 78 Honda Accord tan. And then it threw a rod somewhere on one of the highways. So I was stranded, called my boyfriend at the time, like, come pick me up. And then I got the car towed to whatever place. And then I spent another $900 on a new engine block, a rebuilt engine. And then even that, eventually that car just took a shit. And I buy another car that then somebody hit me because I ran a red light. Oh God. And it cracked the axle, cracked and bent the wheel. I drove on that for a minute until that took a shit. And then that's when they were loosening the reins on the credit. So then I was able to get another car. But even that, and after that car took a shit, or not took a shit, I sold it to somebody in Hawaii. Then I bought another car and they were loosening the reins for $1. And it was one of those cars at Enterprise, a Ford Focus. So I got that car for $1 that even the agent gave me. I had no job at the time, but I was getting a job. And so I paid that car off. And so, so I was not raised like a Silicon Valley person. I had to basically suffer through buying my own car, going through all the suffering of making bad choices about them, and oh God, paying so much money for all the maintenance. And so marrying a guy that is so mechanically inclined was strategic on my end, because I know how stupid I am around cars, and people will take advantage of me when they see, oh God, here's a live one. We're going to charge her $800 for an alternator, which has happened. I paid $800 for an alternator. So I've made bad choices and learned from them and had to pay the piper. And then now I'm married to someone who's mechanically inclined. I don't have a car because I don't need one. He has the truck, and he knows how to fix it if he has to, and we can afford to get it fixed if it's that bad. And so that's kind of the driving reason why I think, if marrying someone who is capable, mechanically inclined and capable, could be even better than marrying someone who's rich. Because then, it's just, I don't know, man, it was strategic on my end. Because I wasn't going to fit in with some, left or right wing man who has a bunch of money. And I'm not going to play the cute housewife or the pregnant mother who's hot and sexual and looks like somebody, Silicon Valley. So, I had to be strategic in my survival. Seriously. All right. And so anyways, so poor kids don't have any money behind them, so they have to really prove their worth. And so, yeah, when you don't have people giving you money and giving you access to everything and giving you all the baubles and everything else, then you become strategic in your survival. But those who had everything given to them and their life was so easy because their friends and family and their parents and extended family bailed them out of situations, gave them cars, gave them clothes, gave them baubles, gave them experiences, gave them free trips here and there. And so they have no impetus to do anything except to keep consuming and taking and taking and taking until the system goes, okay, we're going to force you into the fucking military and survive. Because your family and your friends and your society kept giving you shit that you never really earned. You just expected it. You're entitled because you have so much friends and family around you that are just going to give you money and give you everything you want. Then eventually, yeah, you did become a blight, or you then have to learn how to strategically survive. That's how the system vets people out. And so Project 2025, page 103, all public school children have to take a military entrance exam while private school children do not. Yeah. Either way, you have to find a way to survive. So leave the war before you lose your humanity. And there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Carl Jung. And that's why people do self-harm. They cut themselves because they were raised with no pain. And you're raised with no pain and no way to use your brain and survive and have boundaries put on you. Then people do things like harm themselves to feel something. They cut. They get drunk. They go have sex. They do things to harm themselves so they can feel something. And that's really scary. We've developed zombies in our society who can't handle their life because they don't feel anything. All right? And so if all the world is a stage, then pretend you're a human. In my opinion, care about yourself and other humans and then walk away from the war. Truthers are becoming the monsters. Read on. Now you are seeing people's inhumane true colors. And so Project 2025 versus July 13th. So if you were to say the war started when Project 2025 was mainstream, like it has been the last few weeks, then you could say that July 13th was the retaliation. Mutually assured destruction. It almost doesn't even matter if it's real or fake. Because people are saying, oh, it's not real. And they're putting ketchup packets and ketchup bottles next to a picture of Trump on the ground bleeding. And I was kind of pissed off when I saw that. Like literally, I was pissed off when I saw someone post that. And that was the truther that I used to kind of circulate with him, but she was more in the religious, born again Christian truthing. And she posted that and I was like, oh my fucking God. This guy actually had blood. Oh, but it's not real. It doesn't matter. Here's the thing. I got in touch with my humanity watching Madame Butterfly in an opera in 3rd grade. And that wasn't even real. But I was in touch with my emotions, my humanity, and I felt the person's pain. Regardless if it's real or fake, I felt the pain of Trump. Him falling down with blood on his ear. I felt the pain. I felt bad for the guy. And I know he was like, doing this and whatever. That's fine. But I feel the pain. I felt the pain of Biden when he's falling down those stairs and making mistakes and him trying to recover from those mistakes. But if you're making fun of these people because you have a politic, religion, scientific dogma, then you will lose your humanity. And people are losing their humanity, actively losing their humanity. And you know what? You can't control that. But you're watching people lose their humanity right now, trying to prove that their truthing is correct. They're willing to sacrifice their humanity for the truth. And I see it all over Facebook. I see mothers sacrificing their humanity because they are so invested in the truthing that they'll sacrifice their own kids for it. Their kids will turn so cold and so calculating and so inhumane that they've developed monsters even through their fucking truthing. That's how bad it's going to get. And so it almost doesn't even matter if it's real or fake. It's how people perceive it and their reactions to it. What is it? Anything you want it to be. If you perceive things to be fake, you won't take precautions. So that's the other side of it too. You're like, oh, everything is fake. And so you won't realize how your peers perceive what you look like, what you stand for. You won't understand the danger of how perception is reality, that you'll walk into a diverse group of people of not thinking, realizing that they've really taken that shit hard. You're like, oh, it was all fake. It was all... And someone's like, fuck you, and they hurt you because of what you said in public, in diverse company. And so we have completely inhumane, cold, calculating, oblivious mothers and fathers and truthers out there. And then one day their truthing, their activism gets their ass kicked in public. It's happened to some of these truthers out there. They said stuff. Someone's like, oh my God. And they actively kick that person's butt. They hurt them. Truthers are going to put themselves in those type of situations when you trigger the wrong person in diverse company, in physical proximity to somebody else. If you perceive things to be fake, you won't take precautions and foolishly assume your peers are safe. If you look like a perceived Democrat, Republican, you will walk into danger. Or if you're taking a bullhorn and saying everything is fake, and then someone who goes like, oh look, a skinny activist here, I'm going to go kick their butt. And it has happened. I've read articles. And yeah, you could put yourself in danger because you're not aware of people's perceptions of whatever's real or fake. Truthing can go too far, making you extremely unaware how dangerous perceptions can be. And you come off cold, calculating, and pompous. How would you like if people never took your pain and suffering seriously, especially around your kids? So you either care about the welfare of humans or you become a monster. I see monsters on Facebook poking fun at yesterday's event, calling his injuries fake. You don't know anything for sure unless you are the architects. And if you're part of it and you're calling it fake, then maybe we should be eyeing you suspiciously as the architects of all of this craziness, and maybe you're putting yourself out there on the line for someone to try to stop the architects from developing these type of scenarios. So don't ever put yourself in a position to think that you know what fuck is going on. You get yourself out of the war and you understand the intention of the system, the intentions of the system, and you have empathy and you have some kind of humanity, regardless if it's real or fake. So assume the official narrative and care about the welfare of a human, or shut up. Who cares about the Illuminati cards? Some truthers are losing their humanity while pursuing their truth. That is the danger of religion. And you see all the religious folk out there are like, oh God, you're Satan, you're Satan, you're Satan. I'm a savior, I'm going to save you from yourself. And they become so religious, they become cold, inhumane, calculating, mean, bully, monster. If you must sacrifice your humanity to pursue your truth, you have now become the monster. Freedom cities are smart cities. Trump is a human. So yes, Agenda 47 is the highlights of Project 2025. And I don't care if you think they're both separate and maybe Trump never really understood Project 2025. Maybe he did. But, whatever videos you've seen out there in the Heritage Foundation and, his awareness or not awareness, it doesn't even matter. Freedom cities are smart cities. Trump is a human. Biden is a human. And they're basically a mirror because we have so many people in our society who have taken on some of the characteristics of both Trump and Biden. And we've developed them in our children. And when everyone's a predator, that's why I did that Facebook reel about Mercy, Mercy Me from Marvin Gaye, and I basically posted everything. All the truthing stuff, all the perceptions, even regular people. We're all predators because of our lack of awareness, and we've all been victims of ourselves. That's what Gollum, that's what the whole Schmeagol and Gollum is that you are your own predator and you are your own victim. And then that gets projected out, and then you cultivate predators and victims in your world. And they're interchangeable. That's the binary code that you live among. And so Lord of the Rings and Schmeagol and Gollum, my precious. Yeah. But again, remember, Trump is playing a part. He has to say what he needs to say, regardless if it comes off like he's lying. Who cares at this point? You don't know what he's been forced to say. Just like when I'm watching Dexter, and when Dexter was shown a video of one of these psycho killers forcing somebody else to kill somebody. And so if you took away, if you didn't show the person who was forcing someone to kill somebody, then you would think the person who's killing somebody was the one actively doing it on their own. No, they were actually being forced to hurt somebody in Dexter. So then when you think about out there, those who are in politics, religion, and science and high levels of government, and also out there on the stage, they could be forced to say these things. They could be forced to deny things. They could be forced to do, you don't know. And so you have fucking compassion for the position that they're in. Who in their right mind would walk into a crowd of people knowing people hate you? Who in their right mind? I mean, that's the thing. And so I wouldn't want to be out there, put myself on the line like that in front of people who are unstable, unhinged, unpredictable. I felt it back in the Dr. Phil days. That's why I took the lady with me to go to Portugal to do that thing that I did with that group of people in Portugal. Because I was fucking scared shitless. I was paranoid up the yin yang. Well, you had every right to be, Jillian, because you cultivated so much resistance. You put yourself out there, you said what you said, you acted the way you acted, and people fucking hated you for it. They're sending you death threats. They were stalking you. They were bullying you. And you should have been fucking scared of everyone. That's why I took the lady with me. I don't talk to that lady anymore. I haven't seen her. I don't even know if she might be on Facebook. She might not be. Anyone that I've cultivated with the Dr. Phil show and the last, 5 years as far as next to me, I don't talk to at all anymore. It's done. We both used each other for whatever we needed to, and then it was done. There was nothing more that we could offer each other without it becoming lopsided, because one was either going to overtake the other. As it happens, when you cultivate resistance, even friendly fire, it eventually will play itself out. And if it gets too hot in the kitchen, you get the fuck out. And when you see yourself trying to take over somebody, or someone's trying to take over you, you get the hell out. Because that can only last so long. Transactional. You are so money, baby, you don't even know it. Swingers, 1996. Why do people get charged twice for a loan or pay double or triple for their choices in life when it comes to the transactions of the universe? You pay for, 1, the cost of the choice and the fact you were given the opportunity to make that choice. Sometimes someone had to develop the platform. There's like all these loans. You pay for the loan, you pay for even changing the terms of the loan. Those are those variable rate loans that when the interest rate changes, then you pay to change, to secure it, okay? And so then you have that interest rate for the rest of your life, or you let it change and you pay whatever the variable rates are. And so either way, you have to pay for anything when it comes to loans. Your interest rating, credit rating, personal public factors, that's what you pay for, is your interest rating and your credit rating, personal public factors. Your immunological ability to pay now or later, and the probability the bill will get paid or not. So if you're like 90 years old, they're not going to give you $50,000 worth of credit. Most likely, what do you have to back that? Unless you have a large bank account. But then why would you need, a huge loan if you have a large bank account? So you might as well just not even get the loan. And so everything is transactional. Everything you do is like currency exchange or energy conversion. I gotta pee. Oh. Oh, I gotta put the AC. It's freaking hot. that song with Marvin Gaye. So stuck in my head. All right. So, and so everything you do, jeez, why? And so everything you do is like currency exchange or energy conversion, okay? Some people cannot afford the life they have, that they don't know it until the devil takes his due. And they don't know it, and the devil takes his due, and sometimes it's unexpectedly. Which is why children pay for the sins of their father and mother. Their genetic lines never paid their bills, and so their children pay the price for their parents' immunological and financial transactions or debt. Well, hold on a second. When you keep treating disease, you keep taking on loans you can't pay for, somebody's got to pay for it. But now, see, if your mom or dad took on a loan they couldn't pay for, and then you happen to be the executor of that estate, you're not liable for their debt. That debt's dead. Because it was the creditor gave them that loan based upon whatever factors. And so you don't have to pay off your parents' debt. Once that person dies, that debt's done. Now, if your husband or wife took on debt and you're in the marriage, then yeah, you got to pay that back because you're in a marriage. But if you're the next of kin, you're not obligated to pay your grandma or grandpa's debt. So sometimes it's an old debt, sometimes it's a new debt. Children always pay the price. Some children can afford to pay their parents' debt, and other kids cannot afford to pay the debt, and so they don't survive the energy conversion or the currency exchange. But the system will always find a way to extract the resources they need, and it's up to the parents to figure out how to make up the difference if they even can. Sometimes you cannot force your children to make up a difference because of your deficits. That's why the system is guiding reproduction carefully, because many people will bankrupt their own genetic line and even humanity if given so much free rein in developing something they can't afford to be what they want it to be. When everybody prints money, there is no value in the money. That's why you don't let everybody print money, which is why they're going to guide reproduction carefully. Why many people in the West will be infertile. Because people are printing money or they're developing children that have no purpose in life. They're just consuming. Okay? And when the system doesn't need that many people and that much redundancy, then they have to then put in a moratorium on the printing of the money and the children. And so that's why you have Social Security numbers, because you've always been money to your friends and family and your parents. There's truth to that term. You're so money, baby. You are so money. Oh, I love Vince Vaughn in that movie Swingers. And the other dude, I forget his name. Oh my God, I have his face. But I'll tell you, that was a great movie. And I saw that in the 90s. That was a great movie. And so, on top of that, as people's lives are being taken away through the system, what are you doing to earn your life back? The life that was given to you, you didn't earn it. Now you have a chance to earn your life back. Do you have what it takes? So again, on top of what I just said, we were essentially brought into this world through so many different reasons, and we were given everything on credit. When you think about it, your parents and caregivers were like an open credit card, and then some people had higher interest rates than others. When you have a high interest rate, it means you were deficient somewhere, and you came up short, so you had to pay the difference. I came into this world at a deficit, and then given so much credit at the beginning, because my parents had education, they had money behind them, they had purpose. So when you have education, money, and purpose, you're worth a fucking lot. But when you don't have education or money and not even a purpose, then what the fuck are you going to do in this world except to take from somebody else? And so I came into this world at a deficit. Okay, I gotta hold on a second. What is it? Money, education, and purpose. Money, education, and purpose. If you don't have any of those, then you're going to have to fucking prove your worth. And so I came into this world at a deficit, then given so much credit at the beginning when then I had a lot to pay back to the universe to earn my place in this world. Everything the government and my parents gave me from the time I came to America and when I turned 18, I had to pay back with interest, with suffering and pain, and also be an example later on in life. Sometimes it would be an example of what not to do. And sometimes it would be an example of what to do relative to someone's intentions. So what are you doing to earn your life back? Okay, payment. And sometimes you have to, like, my student loans? Yeah, so my pain and suffering and what I'm doing right now is paying them back, but not really, because I have to pay again. Not only have I given money to my book, I've gotten a return on that investment because I made a lot of money. Not a lot, but enough. But I also gave people, I shared the wealth with my moderators. I bought 3 people computers and given someone a small job, for a minute, Lillian. I don't talk to her anymore. She disappeared somewhere. But I did share the wealth, but I also probably, broke even? When you think about it? Because I also invested again in another book that I have right now. But I'm not going to be investing in another book until I'm really sure that what the hell I'm going to write. Okay? And so I still have to pay back those student loans. So that was still like a third, like the government's getting so much more return on their investment that I pretty much have earned my keep in this world. And I will continue having to earn my keep in this world, whether it's being a good wife and being a good citizen and giving back to my community by giving people information without forcing it down their throat. Okay, so I had to pay back with interest, with suffering and pain, and also be an example later on in life. Sometimes it would be an example of what not to do. Sometimes it would be an example of what to do relative to someone's intentions. And so what are you doing to earn your life back? What will you contribute to humanity? What will your contribution to humanity be, or will you just keep consuming and taking and developing more consumers? And when you do that, the devil will take his due. So if you're poor, right? If you're like financially poor and you're developing a bunch of children, you have just developed more consumers that probably won't give back to society and probably can't even sustain their own life. And so what will your contribution to humanity be, or will you just keep consuming and taking and developing more consumers called children? And when you do that, the devil will take his due. There is nothing free in this world. Sometimes people pay double and triple the interest because they were given so much credit somewhere else, and so they had to pay back later on double and triple the ordinary amount or the principal, whatever. And so some people were born with a silver spoon in their mouth. Other people were born with no spoon and they had to eat with their hands. The universe always keeps the balance if you have what it takes to pay what you owe and also earn your way into this world. On each end of the spectrum, no one ever gets out of their current station without paying the toll. So I was given, beauty and sexuality and, skills. Okay, and then you start seeing the facade break. That was what happened back in 2016 before the J-Juice. The facade was breaking. It was a question of whether or not my marriage was going to survive, whether I was going to survive. Okay? And so for me to then convert the facade breaking into rebuilding the facade and understanding I had to really go through the pain and suffering. The initiation to the next world, which is basically the next Hayflick limit. What is Hayflick? Leonard Hayflick. Dr. Leonard Hayflick, he discovered that the somatic cells can only redouble itself 50 times over before it then goes to another immortalized germline cell that will need to develop another downline of somatic cells to then redouble itself 50 times over. And so that's why Gen X is like the crapshoot, because we're hovering around the Hayflick limit. And so that's why menopause is around 50. Sometimes it's earlier, but statistically, predominantly around 50 is when women hit the change, when they're not fertile. And either they're going to destroy themselves trying to gain back their fertility and youth and vitality, or they accept the change and support it and become immortal, if they understand they're going to have to now pay the toll to get to the next hay flick limit. All right, so you're going to watch the rich pay the toll for their consumerism and contribution and status, and you'll watch the poor find a way to raise themselves above their station if it's possible, or take credit, and then eventually the devil will take what is owed. The powers that be are leveling the playing field. Figure out where you are and act accordingly. And so if you find that the only way to fulfill your purpose in life is to have 1 billion kids, well, your kids are going to be used for a lot of different things, which you're not going to have any power over. And you shouldn't, because you don't know even how to keep yourself alive, so it makes you think you can keep your kids alive, and so the system will use resources that you gave them, because they're going to turn into major consumers until someone puts an actual limitation on their consumption. And some of these kids are out there running around, going through yards and stealing shit and going through cars and committing crimes and hurting people and robbing stores. And these people are just developing kids out of nowhere, and they have no purpose, no education, and no money behind them. So what do? They just take, and they take, and they take, and they take. So why do you think we have a great reset? Why do you think we're guiding reproduction carefully? All right. I'm not gonna say too much about that. We already know about the Trump stuff. I think all of us have a seat at the table. What we are contributing to Facebook, if we're actually contributing something of value, the system is considering. Okay? And if there is nothing you can offer to society or anyone else, then don't even bother trying to integrate with people or resist them. Just stay in your little homogenous circle and leave everybody alone, which is why I stay home and stay safe, because there's nothing I can offer anyone. It must be graciously received to make any offering worth its weight in wisdom. So I put it on Facebook and let it fly. But I don't actually inject myself into groups of people, into any kind of family or friends, because I have nothing to offer them except for what? Systematically contributing to take their life, my own life too. Because what are you going to do? You're not talking about stuff that is important to you. You just take part in whatever, what is it? When in Rome, do what Romans do. Well, if Romans are doing things that are self-harming, then, and you're not, then you're going to stay home and stay safe and let them do what they do. And you just put your thoughts out there, let it germinate, plant seeds in the hearts of men and women in their minds, and they'll figure it out or not. And so humans have been linked through addiction and need for company, as well as gathering data and information like two ships passing in the night. What does the future look like for people who don't need to be linked through addiction and need for company, and they already have the data and the information they need to survive? And so what will the purpose for humanity in the future when they don't fit within the paradigms that exist today? So what would be the purpose for humanity in the future when they don't fit within the paradigms that exist today? And that's the purpose I'm working on, because there's already architects and engineers who will develop an infrastructure for society who can be relatively sustainable. And so then what will be the purpose for those that live in a sustainable environment who don't need to be linked to other humans through addiction and need for company? What will people talk about? What will they do together besides playing games of chance or strategy? When your peers are just as smart as you, then it's sharpening and developing more neural pathways to develop another segment of existence and evolution. That's a question mark. When your peers are just as smart as you, then I guess, is it sharpening and developing more neural pathways to develop another segment of existence and evolution? When all the movies are all about types of humans you live among and their secret lives they hide behind facades and lifestyles, won't that get boring after a while eventually, when society has exposed everyone through the movies that you live with and among? When you've already figured out the politics, religion, and science is trying to get people to assimilate to each other so they're not destroying each other through love, sex, and friendship and resistance, to integrate diverse people, it might be best to understand okay, so when you've already figured out the politics, religion, and science is trying to get people to assimilate to each other so they're not destroying each other through love, sex, and friendship and resistance, maybe it's to integrate diverse people. It might be best to understand why they're integrating and what kind of evolution and tools of the trade they can bring to any situation that includes the stories and developing tolerance levels for assimilation. I know this stuff sounds like word salad. I'm just spitting out information. It's just me doing what mind mapping. But I mean, when when I've already figured out how to stay alive, I know how to deal with cancer, disease, and chronic illness. I pretty much understand all the allegory and the religion and the politics and all the social constructs. And I don't need to be around people. I don't need addictions and all that other shit. Then what the fuck do you do? Who are you? Who can you integrate with? And so then what is your purpose? To no different than, is your purpose just to give people information, to help them, rise above or whatever? I guess. No different than the Native Americans introducing corn or something else to the Pilgrims. And so, to integrate diverse people, it might be best to understand why they're integrating and what kind of evolution and tools of the trade they can bring to any situation. And that includes the stories and developing tolerance levels for assimilation. And so what does your culture have to offer somebody else that would help them and help you help them? What would they have to offer to you? And if there is nothing you can offer to society and anyone else, then don't even bother trying to integrate with people and resist them. Just stay in your homogenous circles and leave everybody alone. And so, which is why I stay home and stay safe, because there's nothing I can offer anyone out there physically. It must be graciously received or make any offering worth its weight in wisdom. Like, again, I could be around people who know what I'm doing. They'll never ask me anything about what I'm doing, but as far as just like, oh, what have you learned today, Jillian? What do you have to offer? Enlighten me, Jillian. And who wants to be fucking taught? Who wants to be preached to? Nobody. So then what do? You talk about either people, the weather, or politics, or current events, but you're supposed to stay away from politics, religion, and even the science stuff in diverse company. So then what's left there to talk about? Oh, I cooked a great meal. Okay. Oh, I watched this movie. Oh, what was it about? Oh, it was about aliens. Oh, I don't believe in aliens. Okay. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out in my head the scenarios of what I would be encountering. So then, no, I'd just be smoking a cigarette and just staying in that, or I'd be drinking alcohol just to get stuck in whatever that, and then make a fool of myself, because what else am I going to do? People already think I'm stupid, and I'll just might as well give them what they want. I'll just act stupid. And that's kind of what I did to fit in, because they already thought I was stupid, so then I just say stupid things or say weird things, like, oh, Jillian's crazy. Jillian's that. Yeah, because that's what you really want me to be. So I'll be what you want me to be until I can't be that anymore, and it's not worth it. All right? And so, I mean, you can't make people do anything, and so then what is your purpose in life? If you're not under the facade, you have to convert people or be distracted out of existence to save somebody from their lifestyle or belief. What's the meaning of life if you're not running away from some enemy or running towards some savior or some prince charming or princess in distress or in resistance to something that you were taught was bad, wrong, or evil? I guess some people's purpose in life is to watch people's identities circle the drain as they punch air and resist ghosts. That was the prompt for the picture below, is in photorealism, watch people circle the drain and punch air and resist ghosts. And that's our society in politics, religion, and science. That's why we're in a great reset, because the meaning of life has become so redundant that it becomes a drain on society. So again, what are you producing children for if they don't have any money, they don't really have any education, and they don't really have a purpose in life? And if their purpose is their parents' purpose is to do what? Work at a gas station? Okay, well that goes to the wayside, then what else? Oh, God. Okay, I'm not going to read this. So I've already said this before, but I wanted to say it again, but I'll read the meme, but I won't read the whole article. Family is supposed to help family, not watch them struggle and talk about them. If that were such a case, then you wouldn't even need to say that. Maybe family is not supposed to be your backup because you couldn't plan accordingly. And that's so fucking true. All right. And here's the thing, too, with, oh, God, our society. Fuck. There's so much. I'm telling you, it's crazy. It's a lot of work integrating people who are so homogenized and so divided, even through sexuality. And so the whole the beer bottles that are gay, beer bottles, what is it? The Bud Light with rainbows. Gay Republican. So that was the next predictive programming, which is the Budweiser bottles with rainbows. Gay Republican is next. And if the LGBT community cannot get behind the gay Republicans, then everything they're doing is a waste of time. You wanted integration. Well, here it is. What's your issue? Okay? And so if you are actively resisting someone integrating with their peers, regardless if the people that they're integrating with are resistant, but if you are resistant to your own peers trying to integrate, when you've been crying about integration, that you want people to accept you, and your peers are actively embracing people who used to resist them, but they're still understanding that there is a common ground. Let's say like Trump is a common ground for these gay Republicans. And then you have gay Democrats who are like, oh my God, you're working against yourself. Resistance is futile. And so here's the thing. People want to sacrifice somebody. They want to be divided. That's why you get people who don't like people, because they don't like you because you're different. They want to be divided. And then so they would rather stay divided, stay resistant, and then sacrifice the weakest person. And that's kind of what's going on, is that people are looking for blood. They will find who they think is the weakest, and they will act like a piranha, and they will annihilate people through love and hate. And that's why you stay away from a lot of people. And that's why you get out of diverse society, especially when people are looking for someone to sacrifice. And during this next election, you'll see both the left and the right looking for someone to sacrifice. Bloodlust. Every single war is about bloodlust. And it doesn't matter what war is, people will find something to bitch about, so they can sacrifice someone and suck the life out of them. Okay? And so they'll look for the weakest person, even within their own group. They'll find somebody in their own group that they think is weak, and they will talk about them and antagonize them until that person either assimilates and becomes a soldier, or they destroy that person's spirit and their body and their mind. But somebody must be the brave person to volunteer to be the first resistance to develop a strength and a new genetic line or a new bloodline of tolerance. All right. And so when the heat becomes too much, get out of the kitchen and let somebody else venture out. And it takes a group effort of people to evolve society. Don't leave your fellow man hanging out to dry because you're too fucking chicken, but you'll find even people within your own group will leave you hanging out to dry, so you better know who you can trust, which is basically yourself, and get the fuck out when it's appropriate. So I admire anyone who ventures outside the box because it's dangerous out there, but you're willing to risk because you care about your fellow man, but you're also not stupid enough and you won't die for your cause. And so you just become another voice that will germinate into something amazing. Okay? And that's when you quit when you're ahead. Trump and Biden are going to die for their beliefs. They're going to die for the cause, whatever that is. And their followers will also too when they hang out in resistance. And so all you gotta do is, when you realize that's what's going on, and they've chosen to be the human sacrifice, and you've seen they're both not infallible. Biden is deteriorated, and Trump is not immune to somebody's situation. So then you walk away from the war, and you learn from your peers what they're doing. And if you don't have the capacity to walk away and save yourself, then you'll join in. And you'll become the voluntary human sacrifice. And that's strategic. So, all right. I think I'm done. Yeah. So you understand that resistance was always the weapon of war. And right now in this environment, anyone you hang out with, you're in friendly fire resistance. So then it becomes only the strong. It becomes familially Darwinistic. When you have a bunch of people around you that are friends and family, it's basically microbiological Darwinism. Only the strong will survive. And you hope the one that does survive isn't so beaten down by the war that they can't survive even their own immune system. Good luck. All right, bye.